Little known factoid about me, I hate Overload champions. I fucking hate them. I was also part of the crew that had a strong distaste for Trinity Ghoul back in Forsaken when it first became a thing. What really ground my gears into the dirt was the fact that it couldn't chain lightning unless you got a critical kill beforehand. And that royally rubbed me raw. Still, to this day, it kind of makes me mad. I mean, look at this. It fires 3 arrows that they spread over time, but each arrow hits for 1/3 of the max damage value, so, but then, I don't, why? It made me mad. And then I got the catalyst and I forgot why I was so ass-chapped to begin with, because it solves the problem. End of history lesson. Fact of the matter here is that it's a really good bow. Abnormally good by itself, extraordinarily good if you've got the catalyst, and it plays real hard into what I'm gonna yammer on about today, which is a variant of my last build, Battle Harmony, which is arguably the next best exotic for any warlock to have because it can work with literally anything you can conjure up. Legitimately, anything at all. I haven't found a single combination that doesn't work with it yet. If you don't have it yet, spend some time grinding the legend sectors. It's a chance drop from any sector that rewards chest armor on that day. Anyway, like I was saying, same exotic, that being Battle Harmony, and the same skill tree, Middle Tree Stormcaller. Only difference is the weapon of choice. This time it's Trinity Ghoul, which, as I've already made painfully clear, is awesome. For the sake of anyone who didn't get a chance to see the last video, or you're just new to the channel, here's the quick breakdown. Chaos Reach is going to tear everything to shreds. Everybody knows this. Ball Lightning for the ranged melee attack, Pulse Wave for the reload buff, and Ionic Trace for the energy regen. The first two are going to activate Lightning Rod from Trinity Ghoul if they score a kill, which is obviously the goal here. Arc Final Blows from any source. Pulse Wave is a reload buff when you're critical. Exceptionally handy, especially in claustrophobic moments when the Reaper himself is only 1.5 seconds away from your mouth. And lastly, we've got Ionic Trace, which makes any kill from virtually any source turn into energy that you have to chase around, and it's really annoying, but it's free energy, so whatever. Now, we looked at this in the last video, but we're about to do it again. For the sake of anyone new to the channel or new to the game, here is how this works. Battle Harmony gives extra super energy on kills from any weapon, assuming that that weapon matches your subclass element. Once you're fully charged, kills activate a damage buff called Absorption Cells. This stacks on a timer, and to my understanding, it also stacks on nearly any other damage buff I was able to cram into my loadout. I said it in the last video and I'll say it again this time. Arc with Arc, Solar with Solar, Void with Void, and even though Salvation's Grip hardly qualifies as a gun, quote-unquote, Stasis with Stasis. Honestly, I don't even know if it actually works with Stasis classes because Salvation's Grip sucks and I can only focus on one thing at a time, but the fact remains. Match your elements. Now, as for Trinity Ghoul, let's examine it just a little bit closer. Lightning Rod activates after every critical kill. It'll chain lightning to targets near the one that you're firing at, and it turns into a trash mob monster. If you've got the Catalyst, which I highly recommend, Lightning Rod will kick in after every arc kill from any source. Seriously, this is nuts. Easily one of the strongest bows in the game, if not the absolute best. As for mods, they've been changed ever so slightly to fit an even more so aggressive style of combat, one that kind of tickles my fancy for three-dimensional violence. A lot of this is still all subject to change, mostly because this time we've got 2 different mod combinations for the same build, one that emphasizes faster supercharges and another with an emphasis on self-healing. Either way, one thing at a time. Here's what I've got starting from the top. For your helm, we're looking at an intellect mod in the general slot and font of wisdom in the combat slot. Any arc wells you grab are going to give you a decent boost to your intellect. We're aiming for an emphasis on casting this time around. For your gauntlets, we're looking at a minor discipline mod in the general slot, anti-barrier in utility slot 1, overload bow in utility slot 2, and lastly, elemental armaments. That means any arc weapon kills are going to have an escalating chance to spawn an elemental well, which is going to fuel font of wisdom. It's extremely handy. For chest armor, we've got another intellect mod in the general slot. Utility slot 2 has bow reserves as a just-in-case type of thing. Extra ammunition is always appreciated, and lastly, I've got charged up. But this is where things kind of split off like I mentioned earlier, providing 2 different separate mod combinations for the same build. I'll talk more about that in just a second. Let's finish up this laundry list of mods first. For Greaves, I've got a minor intellect mod in the general slot, Arrow Scav in utility slot 1, Recuperation in utility slot 2, and lastly, I've got high energy fire. Emphasis on weapon damage with each orb that you collect, and there will be a lot of them if you've got the catalyst for Trinity Ghoul. They will be everywhere. I am constantly tripping over orbs of power. For your bond, I've got one last intellect mod in the general slot. Surge detonators is not required this time. Arrows are going to handle all of your champion woes. Or, at the very least, the overload champs. Instead, I've got perpetuation. Casting a rift is going to return a small amount of rift energy. You can go with a heal or a damage rift. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. If you want to emphasize on healing just a little bit more, then take a healing rift, because we're going to swap out a few mods on our chest and greaves. Keep in mind that this is more experimental than anything else. I noticed this combination late into the production of this video, but I didn't want to leave it out completely. You need to slot a minor intellect mod, 2 stacks of bow reserves, and a single stack of heal thyself on your chest piece. Next, you're going to do the same thing on your greaves. Swap high energy fire for another stack of heal thyself. Even with the lower discipline stat, you will almost always have a grenade ready when you need one. That is a guarantee. That's what abilities like Ionic Trace are for. They exist as compensation for lower stat tiers, and they allow you to stuff more of the mods that you actually need onto your armor. That way you don't have to fill them up with needless stat boosts at the cost of passive combat abilities. By the time you're done, your stats should look a bit similar to this. Or that's the goal at the very least. Armor stats are random, but this is what you want to aim for when you're thinking of stat tiers. Now, as always, you really want to avoid going with the double kinetic loadout. Anti-barrier means that you need a kinetic sniper, so I'm taking the long shadow with me again. I don't have any heavy recommendations at the moment, so I just stuck with a falling guillotine and I've had 0 issues with it. So if you're wondering what a good heavy slot pick might be, you should probably start there. Combat is easy enough, mostly because where there are arc shields or unshielded enemies in general, Trinity is going to slice through them like a hot knife through butter. I mean that literally. With the catalyst, this weapon is virtually unstoppable. Any arc final blows are going to activate Lightning Rod, and it will constantly chain lightning to nearby targets every time you get a hit or a kill. This is healthy because you're getting the intellect boost from Battle Harmony, the super energy from the initial kill, and then the chunk energy from the mobs that the chain lightning killed for you. This is a supercharged machine, even more so with higher intellect tiers. It is insane. Trinity Ghoul is also going to make short work of any overload champs you might come across, and when you're plundering the depths of a legendary/master sector, there will be plenty of them waiting to shank you when you least expect it. It is extremely handy. Barrier rounds are here for the off chance that you wind up with a barrier champion blocking your path. They're not the challenge that they used to be. Normally you can take them out with Whirlwind Blade before they even have a chance to shield up. But in that off chance that you drop the ball, the barrier rounds are going to be a lifesaver. In turn, the sniper is also your secondary source of chunk damage. In certain scenarios, it'll even be your main source since you've got a sword in your heavy slot. Swords are great and all, don't get me wrong, but good luck using a sword on any of the sector bosses in the Cosmodrome. That's what I'm trying to say here. I cannot recommend this weapon combo enough. You don't necessarily have to use a long shadow, it's just my favorite one, and this one specifically has explosive payload on it, so yeah. The sword is mainly just there for champion damage. Champions are always going to be there, and they're always going to be an issue. Stun with Trinity Ghoul or shield break with long shadow and go for the throat. Most champion issues will immediately be solved after that, except for unstoppables. If there's an unstoppable running around, you are 100% fucked. For the secondary mod combo, the majority of the combat strategy remains unchanged, save for the fact that you'll mostly be keeping a greater distance between yourself and most targets, primarily high HP targets like bosses or majors. Heal Thyself will restore a bit of health on a grenade final blow. It's an uncommon mod to see out in the shared world, especially since there are so many other options, but 2 stacks, in combination with the healing rift, will suffice. It could be just a lowly dreg that gets knocked out by your storm grenade, or your pulse, or your arc bolt, whatever, I don't care. It's going to regen enough to keep you going for a few more seconds, and that is what matters. The extra healing may allow for a bit more aggression, but that kind of remains to be seen, so we'll see how it all works together in practical application. For now, that about sums up the entirety of this build. High intellect and rapid casting with an emphasis on crowd clearing as opposed to gunning down targets one by one. Incredibly effective, shockingly lethal for anything on the receiving end of your lightning arrows. I expect a good roast in the comments for that one. That was fucking terrible and we all know it. I'll be in my cell if anyone needs me.